With something like 5 million podcasts, finding a really good one can take a ton of time. So let me recommend one. It's called Something You Should Know. I'm the host, Mike Carruthers, and in each episode, we discuss topics that can be really helpful, like how to read people better, the psychology of crowds, or fun things like the story of Legos, or why you probably wouldn't be here if it weren't for horses. Something You Should Know is the name of it, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, I'm Alison Larkin, writer, comedian, narrator, and host of the Jane Austen podcast. Join me as we embark on a journey through Austen's timeless stories, starting with Pride and Prejudice. The Jane Austen podcast with Alison Larkin is available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Let's hang out. Let's hang out. And let's talk about what legends are about. Let's hang out. And let's listen to two lesbians shout. Let's hang out. Let's hang out.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Lez Hang Out, the podcast where I know my calculus. This is you plus me equals us. I'm feeling the boy band vibes.
For all of you who are listening, Lee just made a heart with her hands. So
I can't do. Hold on, I'm too old. What's the Gen Z, the Gen A, whatever they do now? This one? Is it this one? I'm doing it wrong. I'm old.
Either way,
It's
no
okay.
one can see it.
No one can see the video. Assume
So they
I
have
did it
no
the right
clue.
way for your age group, and that's what I did. This video won't see the light of day. From the West Coast, I'm Lee Holmes Foster.
From the East Coast, I'm Ellie Bridget. To those of you who have been with us through this whole journey, thank you as always for listening. If you're a new listener, welcome. We're excited to have you here. Here's what's happening this week. This Week in the Lesdom is a place where we can touch base each episode about things going on with the podcast or otherwise. In season 7, which is coming to a close very, very soon, we are still releasing our Patreon bonus episodes. And our next episode will be on Tuong Fu on June 24th. So if you want to listen to that, you can join our Patreon at bit.ly/lespatreon. If anyone can hear that jingling or the snoring, that is my dog Rambo. And I'm going to leave that in the edit for, personality. There he is. We're also doing a second release of Journey to the Heart, which will be released actually today. We were supposed to release it last week, and Pride just overtook our lives because we're gay, and here we are. So we are going to release episode 1 again today, and you're going to be able to hear all the different pathways. Week by week, we're going to do episode 1 through 6, but it's going to be a completely different version of the story. So if you want to listen to that again, you can listen to that anywhere you listen to your podcast. In the greater Lez universe, happy Pride. We are still continuing to celebrate, and we hope you're celebrating or protesting in whatever way you see fit. Remember, Pride is a protest. So this is your moment to celebrate and to also raise your voice for those who are still oppressed in this world. We love you all, and we hope that you have the best Pride. Also in the greater Lez universe, I know we had sort of talked about I Kissed a Girl, and I really, really wish that Lee was here recording this with me because I need to hear her reaction on this, but I'll let you know what she thinks when she hears about it. But the drama at the I Kissed a Girl reunion is something we need to talk about because, oh my God, Nay and Priya, who were the top couple of the whole Masseria, Priya comes home 2 weeks later, gets married to her ex-fiance. If that is not the most lesbian, if that's not the most lesbian drama you could ever hatch up, I do not know what it is. And to be fair, lesbians, we need to be better. I'm sorry, that, yes, lesbians U-Haul, but that's some next level shit. So that was crazy. I've been following along on TikTok. Cannot wait to hear more about that drama because that was wild. Also, Rachel Scanlon, who has been a guest on the podcast before, also hosts the popular Two Dykes and a Mic, has a new comedy special out right now. It's called Gay Fantasy. And you can watch it on Prime Video, Roku TV, all kinds of different places, but highly, highly recommend it. I went to see Two Dykes and a Mic at City Winery in Boston. Oh my gosh, they are so funny. Really, really just so talented at what they do. So I'm a big fan of Rachel Scanlon, and I would love to just give a little shout out to their new comedy special. That's what's happening this week. Back to you, Ellie and Lee.
Thanks, Ellie and Lee, and we are so excited to bring you episode 21 of season 7, getting close to the end there. This is Qua-Drag-Tic equation. See what I did there? Huh?
Love
and
it.
we are joined Ellie's like, no, I don't get it.
I get it.
Drag-Tic.
I get it.
Drag-Tic. Okay. We're joined by a very special guest today. We have Kyne Santos, who began her drag career at university doing drag tutorials on YouTube before appearing on the first season of Canada's Drag Race, then took to TikTok to make short-form math videos while dressed in high glamour drag. And his new book, Math in Drag, is a dazzlingly fun biography and history and pride book exploring a world in which numbers glitter and equations sashay. Kyne, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So exciting. And we are actually catching you right at the tail end of your book tour. So how was that?
Yeah, it was amazing. I just got back home. So we drove all across the country, from Halifax to Vancouver, literally coast to coast.
Wow.
It was my first time driving across Canada, and Canada's just beautiful. And I'd never been to the prairies in the middle, so that was really nice. And then the Rocky Mountains, we went to Banff National Park. We saw some elk. It was just beautiful.
Nice.
Oh, and the book tour. The book tour was great too. Yeah, the people were lovely. We hit up a bunch of independent bookstores. We love it.
We want to hear about the elk only now.
Yes. It looks like too, like you have been traveling a lot. Like I don't know, I find it, obviously the book is great, but like I was, watching some of your TikToks and your Instagrams, and it's sort of cool to see. I feel like your video content is very like, it's the perfect mix of educational and like fun and creative, right? You're like literally in Spain being like, so look at all these geometrical shapes. Did you find anything like that when you were traveling Canada where you were like, math is everywhere?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. I don't think I really had that on my mind. We passed one place just outside of Winnipeg. It was the world's largest Coke can. Really, it was just like a barn silo that was painted red. So I remember looking up at that. Thinking, I wonder how many Coke cans fit in that.
Let's start calculating. We're getting out our rulers.
Love it.
Well, Ellie and I got copies of the book, so we got to read a little bit. But for our listeners who don't know a little bit of your backstory, how does one become the math drag queen?
Gosh, well, I really started out, I never thought that this job existed when I was a little kid, but all I knew was that I loved math, and I loved painting and art, and I started wearing makeup when I was in high school. My parents pushed me out of the closet, which was horrifying, but also like work. I just, after that, felt like I did not need to hide myself from anybody else. So I showed up to school the next day, lip gloss, foundation, got an eyeshadow palette, and I just fell in love with being creative. And I saw the way that people looked at me and like stopped and did a double take. And I really liked sort of having that power of walking into a room and just everybody being like, oh my gosh, I love your makeup. So I just fell in love with makeup. And then that evolved really into just becoming a drag queen, which was just like makeup plus wigs and fashion and dancing and music. So I started doing drag after I graduated high school and I was in university. Meanwhile, during the day, while I was being Miley Cyrus in school, studying theorems, doing math, I was like living this double life. And then the pandemic happened and I started merging the two. I started just talking about my math homework while in drag, and people loved it on TikTok. I just started thinking I was going to post these videos as a joke because, I thought it was funny to see a drag queen, talk about algebra, like not even acknowledging the fact that I was in drag. I just thought it was funny. But no, I was so surprised. Everybody, was commenting that they loved seeing math explained through this fresh, fabulous lens. So I just kept going with it. And, it's been like 3-4 years now that I've been doing this. And people know me as the math queen, and I love it.
I'm obsessed with that because I also just feel like, I mean, as gay people in general, but like in this world, people love to put us in little boxes. And like you very much are like, no, this is like, I can be everything in one, especially like the like left brain, right brain, or like that kind of stuff where it's like,
I never liked that because I was always artistic as a kid. I loved to sing, and I loved singing karaoke for everybody. In my Filipino family, like we just all sang karaoke, and I was just always singing Celine Dion and Tina Turner. And my dad was also an engineer, and he wanted me to be good at math. And I just was always like working with numbers since I was a little kid. So I just always had my hand in both, and I've always liked to do both. And I feel like as gay people, we just think that we can do anything. So
Yep.
that is
Yep.
just
Yes,
mentality.
correct.
Thinking, you know,
I feel like we actually were
math, I'm gonna
literally,
do it.
I think we were talking about that last week, weren't we, Lee? We were like the gay
Yes.
audacity to literally
Gay
think you can do
audacity.
anything.
Yeah. I also love it because I feel like, I mean, I felt this reading the book, kind of, I'm feeling it right now too, where I'm like, oh, you're like, you and I have like very similar things that way, where I'm like, yes, like grew up with the theater, the music, the like all of that. And also then like, you know, majored in chemistry, did my PhD in chemistry. We just have very opposite journeys with makeup, you and I, is like the that's
Lee's
where
like,
our
I started wearing
paths
less and
diverge.
less makeup as I came
Yes.
out.
I'm like, you're describing, you're like, I just loved it so much. And going to school, and everyone was like, I love your makeup. And I'm like, sounds like my nightmare. But I am so happy for you.
How did you first fall in love with theater? Tell me about that.
I just, my whole family did theater. Like, my parents have always done theater my whole life. And so that was like my childhood. My brother and I, you know, grew up kind of like on the sidelines of rehearsals, you know? So like we're just there hanging out, like running lines with people. Like I used to run lines with my parents all the time because we knew the show forwards and backwards, because brain, you know, your brain at that age is just like a tiny little sponge. And so you're just like, I know 300 pages of this show by heart. Like, so we just, I mean, that was like my whole, yeah, like just loved, and I still love that, you know, like Ellie and I still do a lot of musical theater stuff now in terms of our musical theater via podcasting lives, but also like very much always gravitated towards the like STEM fields, you know, and I love that.
Yes.
What about you, Ellie? What's your math journey?
Good. All right. Good question. Because I'm like I'm not as mathy as both of you, but that's okay. But I was saying to Lee before, I was like, I was in AP Calculus, all right? So like,
Okay.
I can do math, but I'm a singer, and like that has been my first love forever. And so I do feel like, at least for me, like my path just sort of like went a different way, where it was like, I'm just all in on the creative side. But like, so math, I could not tell you. I don't remember anything from my.
Do you need me
I don't
to say
remember
it for you,
anything.
Ellie?
What?
There are far fewer spotlights in the math realm.
Yeah, exactly. I can't have. I don't. Yeah, I need. Yeah, you're right. I need it. I need the limelight. But so I forget so much. So it was also just like, I was like, all right, now I got to get this part of my brain back. But what I love about what you do is you do make it so like accessible. There's just a narrative that we have that's like, especially even from when you're young, it's like, if you're good at this one thing, there's no way you could be good at this other thing. So like, don't even try.
Yeah, and the whole idea that there are just like math people and people who are naturally good at math. I think that's wrong. I think if you practice it every day, anybody could be good at math. And I think if anybody practiced singing every day, anybody could be good at that. I don't think it's something that you're born with. So the idea, and we tell this idea to little kids, saying, "Oh, you're not a math person. You're more of an English person. You're more of an arts person." It sort of puts these limits in our heads about what we can do and what we can be. So, you know, I'm just trying to challenge that.
Yeah.
We as queer people say no
no
limits to the world.
Yeah, I love to. There was a video I was watching of yours about the Pygmalion effect, and I feel like that also is like exactly what you're talking about, right? Like for me, it's like I did have to. I feel like it was like I was an overachiever, so like I was in all these classes and whatever.
Yes.
But I also know that like from a young age, people were like, "You are a singer."
Yeah.
And it, because of that effect, is that why, like, that's, of course, like, so.
And when you were in school and when you were in AP Calculus, you were telling yourself, I'm good at math, I'm good at calculus, I can do this. And that motivated you to do your homework and work at it. And as a result, you were good at math. But so many people, especially adults, once we're out of school and math is no longer, you know, compulsory for us, we tell ourselves, oh, I'm not good with math, don't hand me the bill, I'm so bad with numbers. And then if you don't practice, then you're not great with numbers.
Yeah. It's also, I feel like the other thing that's fun about the book to me is it gets into, like, there's a way in which sometimes I think it is hard because so much of, like, what people encounter, right? Like, what you do in your sort of, like, K through 12 education doesn't get to so many of like the really cool things yet. You know, it's like you don't hit all of these things that are totally approachable and totally understandable for like mostly your average person off the street, right? Like, and also kind of get you thinking about some of the cool ways in which math works. And sometimes I think that like that's hard because then people leave and sort of leave this place where it's like, okay, now you're forced to do math, right? And they don't get to continue on to like some of also the really like cool stuff that you might get into.
The math that gets taught from K to 12 really is more like arithmetic. It's the basic building blocks. It would be like if you were teaching music to people by saying, this is how you read sheet music, and this is how you do scales, and this is, you know, these are the mechanics of how a piano works. But you never once for them played a full song, and they never heard what Mozart sounds like or what Beethoven sounds like, but they learn every single detail of the scale. Well, they wouldn't walk out of that class saying, I love music, I want to be a musician, because all they've learned are the tools, but they haven't seen how you put those tools together to create art. You know, in math, that stage is sort of hidden behind these ivory towers and kept in these higher levels of math.
And it's the same, like I always felt the same way with chemistry, especially because like being a person like, you know, as a queer person who tends to be like very on the liberal side and on, you know, and it's like you run into a lot of things sometimes where you just hear, and from both sides actually, that you hear people say stuff a lot where they're like, well, I just believe in science. And I'm like, usually what that tells me is that person knows very little science. Yeah. Because I'm like, science, actually, once you get like, you know,
it means they believe in the science that they learned in second grade.
Yeah, like junior year biology. I'm like, science actually tends to be a whole lot more complicated and weird and not sense,
and it's
like,
always
changing
and it's something that's very nuanced and complicated. And you know, when we tell people, hey, listen, gender is really nuanced and complicated, they're like, I don't want to hear it.
Yes the same people who are like, I believe in science, will be like, and therefore I know your chromosomes and I can assign what pronouns I'm going to use for you. And I'm like, okay, as second you say like I believe in science, I'm like, light, wavelength, particle, let's discuss, because listen, I'm like, I'm sorry, but you're going to tell me science is always just like there's one answer, and you're like, unless you're over here, in which case it's a totally different answer. It's also right. It's both answers. We don't know why. If you're over here, use this answer. If you're over here, use that answer. Why? Science doesn't know. Because the equations work out, and we've just decided to run with it. Like, and that's what I love too about like some of the book is like you get to dive into
the book is exactly that, except with math
like
instead
here's
of science.
some cool things, and let's talk about it, and let's understand some of them, because I actually think there's a lot of fun, understandable stuff that like people shy away from.
Kyne, would you actually talk about the whole, like, because I feel like you talk a lot about like math as a social construct and gender as a social construct. Can you talk a little bit about how you talk about that in the book?
Sure. I do it a few times, really, in different ways. You know, each chapter I talk about a different math subject and then connect that with my life and gender, queer history, drag. The first example that I really like is I talk about the notion of numbers, because, you know, a lot of people, I'm sure you've seen on the right wing will say, you know, what is a woman? What's the definition of a woman? You should be able to define that simply. But a number is an example of a word that we may use it every day. Most people don't really know how to define it. If you think about how to define a number, it's sort of hard to do it from scratch. You know, you might use a word like an amount or a quantity. Numbers are sort of a notion of counting something. And in the past, we used to think that numbers were just these things you could count on your fingers, like I have one sheep or two pots. But what does two really mean? It's a very abstract notion, especially once you start thinking of zero and of negative numbers. You know, people resisted the idea of numbers that abstract because they thought, well, what does zero mean? How can nothing be something? And how can you have negative sheep? You know, if you have 3 apples and you give Hannah 5 apples, you have -2. It's a confusing and very abstract notion. But now that we've learned about negative numbers and integers in school, we know, oh, actually that makes sense, because -2 means you're 2 apples in debt. And so you have this notion of expanding a definition and and including examples that may not have fit in your previous definition. And I think gender is a little bit like that because we have a framework of understanding what people do, what men are like, what quote unquote women are like. And when you see somebody who's a little bit outside of that binary, you can react by saying, well, that doesn't fit my definition of what a woman is or what a number is. But maybe there are actually just other numbers out there that we haven't really learned how to describe yet. And when we expand our frameworks to include negative numbers, then we can actually talk about debt, and we can talk about basement floors in a building. And there's so many things that we can talk about now that were very difficult to talk about before when we have new numbers in our definition. So really, the book challenges you to expand your frameworks and have an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
How do we queer up all school topic, like all
Every
areas,
part
all school
of
subjects?
curriculum?
I am serious though, honestly.
Well, maybe I'll have to come out with a second book, chemistry and drag.
Yes.
But maybe somebody
Oh my
else
God,
should write
listen.
that one.
Yeah.
Hit me up. I'm here for it. Not the drag part. I can help, proofread the chemistry. No, but it's so true. It's like there's just, especially now, like I have, two small kids, like kind of just entering school age kids. And like, there's just so many things that you're like, man, I just want you to think about how cool and weird everything is on Earth, because like most stuff is cool and weird, including but not limited to math.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot of cool weird stuff out there.
I've really fallen in love with learning after graduating, and I realized that I wasn't going to learn in a classroom anymore, and I had to be in charge of choosing what rabbit holes I want to go down. That's why I'm interested in elk and birds, and I just find new fascinating things to think about every day. The worst thing that happens in school is learning that every fact that you learn you have to memorize for a test. And I think that's why people get frustrated with math, because for them it's not fun. It's not about solving puzzles or being creative. It's about getting a mark on a test. That test is going to determine if you can get into college, and that's going to determine if you can get a job and you can make money. But there's so much more than just learning things for the sake of money. As you say, so much of this world is cool and interesting.
Yeah.
Do you remember what first, like, I know you said like you had always been sort of like drawn to math, like your dad was an engineer. Do you remember, is there like a thing that you remember learning about as a kid that you were just like, yeah, this shit is great. Like, I love this, like, was there something that stands out?
I really liked learning my times tables as a kid. That big 10 by 10 grid. I liked how, for instance, if I wanted to do 5 times 6, I could add 5 6 times, or I could add 6 5 times. I could figure out what's 5 times 7 and then subtract 5 from that. And there was so many ways I could arrive at the same answer. I just saw it all as a big web of numbers sort of flowing together. And if one chain in that web breaks, if you forget what's 5 times 4, then you could think of what's 5 times 3 and add another 5 on top of that. That was the first time I sort of started seeing everything weave together. And we played a game in my class where we memorized our times tables, and we all stood around in a circle in the classroom and like threw a dodgeball at each other. You'd like throw it and say, Kyne, what's 4 times 6? And then if you could answer it in 3 seconds, you stayed in the game. But if you couldn't do it or you got it wrong, then you sat out. And it was the only time I was ever good at a game that required throwing a ball. I was the last one standing, and that's when I said, wow, I'm good at math, and this is my best subject.
I love that. I also vividly remember times tables. I feel like it is a formative thing, because but what I find interesting about what you were just saying, because you were talking about like people memorize it and whatever, like, it also, now you're explaining like how you would think of it, and I'm like, just like, everyone's brains are so interesting, like, because like everyone works so differently, because I'm like, the way you're thinking about times tables, like, don't think I was thinking about it in the same way, but I still found them interesting. Right. So it's also just, I'm finding this conversation to be fascinating in that, like, just because you're not thinking about it the same way, you're still arriving at similar conclusions.
And that's
so
why
I think
math
like the
is creative,
creativity
and that's
of
why
it.
it's artistic.
Yeah. We were talking like a little bit ago about like, because if we're talking about debt and we're talking about like money and economics, I feel like that's the thing that most people, when you think of math, you're like, I have to do my taxes or or calculate, like you said, like, I don't know what the tip is for this. Like, how would I ever figure that out or whatever? Can you talk a little bit about the part about like the economics of Drag Race? Also, and besides that, after that, or even before, I would love to just talk about your experience on Drag Race.
Sure.
What that was like.
Sure. Well, yes, I loved my economics classes in university. And one class we took was on game theory, which was all about sort of the science of strategy and different players of a game, whether it's tic-tac-toe or chess or Drag Race. We try to anticipate what the other people will do as we strategize for ourselves. What's our next step? Now, the economics of Drag Race, I mean, I think everybody knows at this point that it's pretty expensive to go on Drag Race. You spend thousands of dollars. I guess on my season, I didn't spend that much. I think I spent maybe $6,000 on new dresses and new wigs. But the thing with Drag Race is every year the bar kind of goes up. And in game theory, it's described like an arms race where both sides are trying to get bigger and stronger so that they can compete with the other. Like the cheetah and the gazelle in nature evolved to be fast so that one of them can outrun the other. If the cheetah can outrun the gazelle, then the cheetah can eat for the night. If the gazelle can outrun the cheetah, then the gazelle lives another day. And they keep getting faster and faster. And on Drag Race, it's like the bar for what you're expected to bring, these $1,000 outfits goes higher and higher. So it was fun. And the whole chapter sort of looks at Drag Race through the lens of game theory.
Love it. So did you feel that way, like when you were on it, where you were like, I gotta raise the bar? Like
I did. I think stepping in that first day, I was like not prepared for the caliber of drag that everybody brought. So I was totally out of my league.
Well, and it was also, was that Canada's first?
It was Canada's first season. So
right?
you know, I had no idea what was going to happen, how the format was going to be, what anybody else was going to bring. And I thought that I was like the Drag Race superfan because I'd seen every episode. I could tell you who went home, what outfit they brought, the biggest Drag Race superfan. So I thought that I had all the data that I needed and that I was like anticipating what are the judges going to say? And then what are the producers going to say? What's the audience going to say? It totally blew up in my face. And I don't know where I miscalculated, but I had fun.
What we're saying is math never lets us down, okay?
It does not.
Yes.
It always has all the answers.
What were your favorite parts of being on Drag Race?
I just liked walking the stage. I liked seeing what it was like on the other side. And I just loved meeting everybody. And that first day, all of us queens being put in that room, you know, we're not allowed to talk about the show when we're on the show, but we would just like look at each other with this like look in our eyes, being like, oh my gosh, can you believe we're here doing this in the workroom? It's just so surreal.
Yeah.
Wait, so you couldn't talk to each other about the show while you're on the show? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, because that's sort of breaking a fourth wall. Can you believe that we're here and there's cameras and that we're on,
Oh,
we're on Drag
yeah.
Race? Whenever the cameras weren't rolling, they made us not talk to each other because they want to save those interactions for the show. But we just always break the rules.
Yeah. Or you try to telepathically communicate. I could not survive. If someone told me I couldn't talk, I would be like, I don't know what to do.
Just slowly implode. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be so hard to do.
It's hard. I mean, even like Ellie and I try to do that sometimes, just literally while we're like waiting to start recording an episode and we're just chatting to each other about the thing we're about to spend an hour talking about.
It's because you want to save it. You want to save it for making.
I know,
it,
but we also
content.
just like can't stop talking to each other. You know, it's like I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And then you do that in a room full of like people who are like, I thrive on like drama and attention, and like that's just it's gonna be even harder.
Yeah, we just formed such a sisterhood through that experience, so we still talk all the time.
Well, and that's what
awesome.
happens too when you just like I feel like every time we are in spaces where we're just like, here is like a very queer space, you know, and you're just like all immediately like, yes, here.
Yeah.
Hi. Great. Love this. It's just, you know, it's better than so much of the rest of our lives where we're not somehow always in queer spaces. And I just still refuse to understand why. Why is the whole world not that?
There's a lot going on right now. Mounting economic inequality, threats to democracy, environmental disaster, the sour stench of chaos in the air. I'm Brooke Gladstone, host of WNYC's On the Media. Want to understand the reasons and the meanings of the narratives that led us here, and maybe how to head them off at the pass? That's On the Media's specialty. Take a listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, a founder of the Go Kid Go network. At Go Kid Go, putting kids first is at the heart of every show that we produce. That's why we're so excited to introduce a brand new show to our network called The Search for the Silver Lining, a fantasy adventure series about a spirited young girl named Isla who time travels to the mythical land of Camelot. Look for The Search for the Silver Lining on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
At Radiolab, we love nothing more than nerding out about science, neuroscience, chemistry.
But we do also like to get into other kinds of stories. Stories about policing or
Politics,
country music,
hockey,
sex, of bugs.
Regardless of whether we're looking at science or not science, we bring a rigorous curiosity to get you the answers.
And hopefully make you see the world anew.
Radiolab, adventures on the edge of what we think we know.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Laura Cathcart-Robbins, and I am the host and creator of the podcast, Only One in the Room. Every week, my co-host Scott Slaughter and I invite you to join us and lose yourself in someone's only one story. The Only One in the Room has a wide variety of guests, from prisoners to abuse survivors to swingers. With 21 seasons and counting, we guarantee that Only One in the Room will have a story that you'll connect with. This podcast is for anyone who has ever felt alone in a room full of people, which is to say that this podcast is for everyone.
It just doesn't make sense.
I would love to talk a little bit about, because you said too, like you've always also been a singer. The Celine Dion has me dying. That's so. One time I was on a cruise ship when I was younger, and they had karaoke. And I decided to sing My Heart Will Go On the cruise. And the people on the cruise were like, what the hell are you doing?
At what age, Ellie? At what age?
I was probably like 10. Mm-hmm.
You guys laugh, but we take karaoke extremely seriously. I mean, we were all singing My Heart Will Go On at 10 years old.
I love it.
I know, mine is more the fact that I was on a ship and they were like, you're jinxing the ship by singing My Heart Will Go On. Like, do not sing the song from Titanic on this ship. And I was like, oh, I just want to show off. Exactly. You understand. But also, like, music is super mathematical.
Totally.
Like very math. Like, that was when I was in high school. Like, I also took like a lot of music theory classes, and I did find that to be like so interesting, because like you listen to a song and you're like, I understand why this thing works in the way that it does, or like the reason that every song mostly sounds like another song is because like there's certain intervals that sound pleasing to our ears, and that's like mathematical.
Yeah, one of the first people to talk about harmonies and what notes sound good together was actually Pythagoras, who also gave us the Pythagorean theorem. You know, to him, math and music were related.
I mean, yeah, they're super, super related. Even like you like count up a scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's like different like intervals between notes, and yeah, like a third sounds better than a tritone or whatever. Like there's certain things that sound better. So yeah, I also find that like when we're talking about like creativity and math don't go together, and it's like every songwriter is using math every time they write a note on a page.
I remember seeing once, it was this cool page that someone had put together, and what they had done was basically take the idea of, you know, like if you play a guitar, right? And if you watch like what happens on a guitar string in like super slow motion, and you can see kind of like that wave form of the note that it's making in the length of the string, and you can see how shortening the length of the string is going to change the pitch of the sound that you're making and stuff. And so they had taken that idea and turned it into kind of like these, like, you know, almost like sine wave representations of different pitches, and they were using them to show like what it looks like when you play like a major chord, right?
Mhm.
Like when you have all of these things that are like spaced out in these specific intervals from each other, and how their waves line up over each other, and it looks very symmetrical and really nice. And then they're like verses, you know, if you plot something like a tritone or a minor chord, where like now it's this kind of chaotic jumbled mess, and like it's not this really, you know, pleasing, clearly visual, like you can see it, you know. And they just had all of these cool like kind of circle representations where you just had like all these different overlaid circles kind of representing, if you just take like your half a wave and turn it into a circle and stuff. And it was just like a really cool like visual representation of so much of this like music theory kind of idea, you know, of like, look, you can look at it and see like you can see the math.
Yeah, because sound is waves, and
Yeah.
if we were able to zoom in on the grooves of a vinyl record, you'd see those waves.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's funny, like when you think about stuff where I'm like, I must have seen this one website like 15 years ago one time, you know, and I'm like, but it's, you know, it just comes back around sometimes when you're like, yeah, it was so cool and mathy and musicy and like right up my alley. I was very into it.
Do you guys play any instruments?
Oh God, I don't know, Ellie. Do you play anything?
I do play a few instruments. I would say I don't play any of them like excessively well, but I can play the guitar, the piano, and the drums.
Wow.
I could play the bass a little bit, but not very well. Very basically.
Yes. And she produces and arranges.
I do a lot of music arranging and producing.
Cool.
But yeah. But I'm like, I say that because like I play in a lot of bands, and I just feel like all the people in my bands are excessively better than I am. So I'm like, I can play.
Is music producing now in 2024 a lot of just working on the computer, or is it still like with instruments and doing
both?
It's a little bit of both, I would say. I mean, it depends. Like that's the thing. It just depends on like because
the type of music.
So I can do all the instruments on that keyboard. So, but you sort of. I mean, I think actually you don't even need to play an instrument anymore, which is sort of crazy. Like you can literally just like. They have like all these kind of like loops and stuff you can just put together. But what I like to do is I play everything out on the piano, like even like the drums. I actually have an electronic drum set that I use, but like I used to do on my keyboard, like play the drum beat. So yeah, you can do like everything on a computer, but certain instruments, most instruments sound a lot better if you just get someone to play it. But it's still pretty cool how much you can do with a keyboard.
There are certain things where synths are a decent approximation and certain things where they are not.
I feel like violin and like string instruments are the hardest thing to get with a keyboard. So like violins and guitars.
Brass
and horns. Yeah, and horns. Yeah.
It can be hit or miss.
Yeah.
I recently did a drag show where we had live music. It was actually part of my book tour. It was in Kitchener. And we had a live jazz band. So some backstory, my old high school math teacher is a jazz musician, and he reached out to me about doing like a math, jazz, drag variety show. So
love that.
It was a total mix of a bunch of different genres in one little night. But it was my first time doing drag with like live music. And I remember the sound engineer being like, oh, let's hear that bass again. And let's amp up the little volume on that backing track of the piano. And it was just like all going over my head because I'm used to just like, let's just plug in an iPod and like hit play using bad speakers this club has got.
That's
so all
so
of that
funny.
like audio quality, you know, totally is lost on me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is why like people who work with sound are called like sound engineers.
Yeah.
Like it is very physics, mathematical. Like you're working with all kinds of different frequencies and stuff like that. I mean, I know you like I think you pretty recently were doing some sort of like music series on your Instagram that I saw.
Yeah, you know, when I was young, I never saw music as mathematical like that until really more recently. I sort of just came to music just as a lover of karaoke. My husband is a musician, and he plays the piano as well. So he was sort of telling me about these thirds and fourths and fifths and explaining it to me. So just another rabbit hole that I went down.
Love it. I love to just like, yeah, like you said, like the curiosity and just like the there's no reason why like at a certain age we should stop learning things. And then on top of that, like to teach other people and like be like, this is for everyone. Like there's no gatekeeping here. Here's the information. And like you're gonna get this information in a very pretty package. Like it's nice to look at, and you're still gonna get all the good shit here. Like I feel like it's very cool. It's very cool what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's actually interesting because if you ever dig down into like the way that most music, like electronic synth sounds happen, like everything sort of goes back to, and a lot of like the synth plugins that you can like download and play with all sort of start with just like a square wave function, and then just all of the different things that you can modulate about that square wave, and like all of those things are what create every single synth sound really like in existence. And like, you know, Ellie knows because she does most of our production for like all of our songs and stuff, and like I am constantly throwing stuff at her where I'm just like, I want kind of like a sound like this, you know, and like then you're just digging through like hundreds and hundreds and thousands of like synth packs because you can make that one wave sound like an infinity of things, you know? Like, I mean, it's really a wild thing that just sort of all starts from like one little square wave thing, and then everything you can do to it from there. It's crazy.
And sound engineers are the reason why all of us around the world can enjoy music. Can you imagine there was once a time in history where if you wanted to listen to a performance, you had to go there and see it live? If you wanted to hear Beethoven's Ode to Joy, you maybe had about 2 opportunities in your lifetime, and you'd have to travel around Europe to watch these orchestras because we didn't have recordings back then. But it was through seeing sound as a wave that could be manipulated and saved as a recording that we can even play music back and listen to it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So cool.
It's crazy. People like you, Ellie. People like you making the world go round.
Thanks.
You know?
That's right.
Thanks. It is really crazy though. Like also just from like a I don't know if it's gonna get too deep or whatever, but it's fine. As I get older, whatever, I'm like, I also am like, I want to get more recordings of myself as well, because you are like that also like lives for freaking ever. It is crazy that like there's like Beethoven like is not here, and yet we can hear, like obviously we're not hearing actual like Beethoven recordings, but you know what I'm saying? It's like I can listen to Whitney Houston's entire discography.
Yeah.
Right? And like how tragic would it be if like it was just like, oh yeah, well we think she was good, but like couldn't tell, like I don't know what she sounded like because like we don't have the recordings.
Yeah.
But like everyone loved her, so she must have been good. You know, like that's so crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Whitney. Damn. Yeah, that's so crazy. Speaking of also infinity, why don't you talk a little bit about you, because you have like a whole section on infinity as well. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I talk about infinity as we sort of learn it as little kids, as maybe the idea of something never ending and counting up to infinity because the numbers never end. But in the 1900s, mathematicians started thinking about the idea of there being different levels of infinity. There's the infinity of the whole numbers, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then in between the whole numbers, all the decimals, all the fractions, and all the numbers like pi, which are called irrational, there's even infinitely more of those numbers between 0 and 1 than even the whole numbers. And the reason we know this is because if you try to match them up, you can't match them up properly because you'll run out of decimal numbers. So it's this notion that there are different levels of infinity that I think is pretty cool. So that opens up the book.
Yeah.
And it's a fun, like, again, I just love the way the discussion of infinity in the sense of like, let's say I have drag queens and wigs, right? Like infinite numbers of drag queens, infinite numbers of wigs. And like, I just feel like there's something that I just deeply, especially as someone who like, you know, I had to TA my way through grad school and stuff. And like, same thing. It's like just trying to find ways to make subjects and topics and concepts that like people treat as though they are completely undecipherable.
Mm-hmm.
And presenting them in a way where it's like, you can make sense of this.
Yeah.
Like, you can
Just
think
making
about
it a
this
little more
as, like,
fun.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. Like, this, just, it's silly, it's relatable, it's like, it's stuff that you can understand. Like, people can understand. It is not hard. I mean, listen, I'm sure there's like someplace in the South, you know, wherever, where it might be hard to think about just an endless line of drag queens for them, but for the majority
I don't know.
of
Yeah,
us,
hard, terrifying. I don't know. Like
yeah, they're like picture infinity drag queens. Help. I've stopped functioning. But most of us can imagine like an endless line of people and an endless line of wigs, and like this idea that you can just sort of keep splitting this like further and further into these subdivisions of things, and you're like, you will never run out of wigs.
Mhm.
You will never run out of drag queens. Like, it is, people can understand that.
It
People
would be
can make sense of that.
excessively difficult to store infinity wigs. Like,
The boxes alone.
You need
I have-
infinity boxes.
Yeah.
Wait, how many wigs do you have?
About infinity minus one. Not,
Yeah.
I'm more frugal.
But how do you store your wigs? Because I'm not like I also am a lover of wigs. Like,
Mhm.
I like a good costume, but like I feel like I get the wig, that wig is fucked up. Like, that wig is, I'm never wearing that wig again.
The wigs that you want to look nice, that are styled, you want to put them on a little styrofoam head. If you want to upgrade, you can get a canvas block, but I only have one of those because that's where I put the wigs that I style. The wigs that are styled, I put on a little cheap styrofoam head, and you just have to stand it up on a shelf. And then the wigs that are unstyled, or that I've given up on, I just throw into a box.
But like, how many styrofoam heads do you have hanging around your house? Because you know what I mean? Like, I'm
Oh
like,
my gosh, maybe like 20.
right? That's a lot of heads.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of storage space. Yeah. Because, it's just a lot. And then you just have
The
all
Economics of
Yeah.
Wig Storage, a
Mhm.
follow-up book
this.
by Ellie. It's
so
just 20
stressful.
chapters of Ellie going, how much does it cost to have all these styrofoam heads?
Yes, exactly. It
What
a lot
is
of
your
storage
favorite
space.
wig that you own, Ellie?
Well, I really like to dress like Cher because I do a really good Cher impersonation.
Okay.
So I have a very long black Cher wig. That's probably the one that I use the most often. I also used to have a Hannah Montana wig when I was in high
Okay.
school. And I think that one kept for the longest, but still not long enough.
I think everybody needs a Cher wig.
Yeah. I actually have, technically, I think I have 3 separate Cher wigs. No, I had two Cher wigs and 1 Sunny wig.
Oh.
Because I also have a wig for me to play Sunny alongside Cher. So I have a curly
Mhm.
and a straight Cher wig. So fun. For my birthday this year, I threw a party and the theme was divas.
And were you Cher?
I actually was not, but I've dressed as Cher many times before, so I was like, I gotta do something else. But one of my friends came in a gigantic Dolly Parton wig, and 2 of my friends came in an Ellie wig. So they wore wigs that looked like my hair.
Oh, that is funny.
It was so fun. It was so fun. But yeah, sorry to derail us on the wigs, but I just am so impressed by anyone who can handle that much wig maintenance. It is not an easy feat.
It's hard. I have a wig downstairs that's calling my name that I've been neglecting for a few days, actually, now that you mention it.
Uh-oh. Which wig?
It's my big black wig that I wear all the time. I have to restyle her.
Literally so impressive. Like, just the amount of dedication to the wigs.
I can't imagine. Listen, I mean, the girls, they haven't really gotten a ton of like Barbies yet, you know? Like, and even just we have like, I think maybe 3 Barbie dolls. Like 2 of them are Elsa. And even just trying to maintain the like hair on like 2 Barbie dolls. I'm like, this is too much for me. This is too much to ask of me. Okay. Look at what I did to my hair. Like, I don't do this. This is too much work.
Minimal
I'm
styling.
growing my hair out. I've had my hair used to be like the style that you have now for most of my life, but I've started growing it out because I realized, oh my gosh, I've never grown my hair out long. So I'm on that
Nice.
journey.
That's exciting.
It is exciting. That's the process, though. That journey is. I've grown this haircut out a number of times in my life, and like it's a lengthy road. It's a lengthy road. At least you have a collection of wigs you can like hide it under when you need to. You know, I didn't have
Your
that.
hair looks great. Okay, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to tell our listeners, like about the book? Like who do you think would be a good reader for the book? I mean, basically everyone, but you can give a little pitch.
The book is for people who like drag. It's for people who like math. If you were a bright math student in high school, I think you'd really enjoy the book. Even if you hate math, I've had people tell me that they never liked math, but reading through the book was able to change their opinion about it. So really, I wrote it for everybody. I wrote it with the goal of changing people's opinions about math and changing people's opinions about drag. So as long as you come in with an open mind, at least about one of those subjects, then I think you'll learn a lot.
Have you considered, or is there a plan to do, like, you know how they have like drag queen story hours, right? Do you do like school drag math hour to schools? That's what I want.
I do.
Come do that.
I do.
Can you come to California?
I would love to.
Okay, I have a guest room I can offer you, Kyne. Come to my kids' school. I would love this. No, because it's like I think there's something so. I mean, I know that there are ways in which like the ways we teach math are changing in schools right now. I think in ways that are like hopefully making it more of a thing that I think make it seem cool to kids or like interesting.
Yes.
You know, like I do think that we're changing how we approach teaching mathematics at a fundamental level, you know? But I just think like anything that kind of gets kids into like, hey, math doesn't have to be one thing, look one way. Like you don't have to be a certain person to do like that stuff is I'm here for it. So
thank you.
Oh, and where can they find the book?
Yes, you can check my website, onlinekind.com/mathindrag for all the info about the book. It's sold everywhere books are sold. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it Indigo, your local bookstore. And soon the audiobook will come out.
Amazing. All right, we're going to head into our Q&A. Are you ready?
Okay.
Q and gay.
Question number 1. What was your favorite subject in school? A, math, B, history, C, English, or D, science?
A, math.
There's no
very
wrong
surprising
answer.
Yeah. This is also, we put these up for our listeners as well. So
Question 2. Pick a pie out of A, pecan pie, B, pumpkin, C, apple, or D, key lime.
Key lime pie.
It's not endless number.
No,
pie,
it's not.
It's still worth knowing.
it's still worth it.
I also love a lemon meringue pie.
That's also
this is making me so hungry. My girlfriend just got me some ice cream earlier, and I've been waiting till after this to eat it. So we're doing it. That made me so hungry. All right, here we go. Question number 3. What are your favorite types of drag challenges? A, lip sync, B, design, C, acting, or D, stand up?
I like an acting challenge. I think those are really funny.
Okay. Question 4. Where do you most relate to math? Out of A, art, B, nature, C, music, or D, taxes?
Ooh. Probably nature. I think math is nature.
The math of elks.
Yes. Bringing it all back.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Question number 5. How many wigs do you own? A, 0. B, less than 5. C, 5 or more. Or D, my wigs are all imaginary.
No, it's I, Ellie. It's the number I.
I.
I think, I think it's probably around 40 that I own. I don't think that's crazy.
Wow.
A perfectly rational number.
Yes.
Of wigs
Right?
to own.
Yes. Yes. Love it. Well, Kyne, thank you so much for spending your time with us and talking
thank
to
you
us
for
about
having me.
math
It was
and
so
teaching
nice.
everyone. It's been lovely.
Let our listeners know where can they find you, follow you on all the things.
Yes. So on social media, I'm at online Kyne. That's Kyne. You can follow me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and you can check out my newsletter, which I update weekly. It's called the Math Queen Digest. You can get the links to that on my website. And yeah, Math and Drag out everywhere. My new book.
Incredible.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We love hearing from you and building community. We love hearing from you and building community, so we want to shout out some of our favorite things each episode. I'd like to shout out some of the comments on our Luca post on Facebook and Instagram, one in particular from Only One Leah that said that they see Luca as trans rep as well, which I really love that interpretation, and said that their son is trans and it really resonates with him. So I just love that, and I'm glad that we have this gay, queer, trans story. And as a trans story, Luca makes a lot of sense, as obviously there's like the two different kind of bodies that he transitions between. One he feels more comfortable in and more like himself. Like, I can so see that. So thank you for that comment. And I just wanted to acknowledge it on the podcast. Also want to say, everyone who posted on our post about Amazon hating the gays on our Facebook, we got a lot of comments on that. One in particular was from someone who said that we should ban all of the hateful comments on our Facebook. And I would just like to say we for sure agree with that. And we do our best to ban everything. But Facebook makes it very, very difficult for us. So thank you for bearing with us as we, as a small team, attempt to moderate the chaotic and quite hateful straights that love to hang out on our Facebook page. As always, I want to thank our Lesbian Jesus patrons, Mark Foster,
Lizette Stye,
Adi Benitez,
Sophia Phillips,
and Armani Gucci.
And our King Princess patrons, Amy and Ellen.
And Andrea Doucette, thank you so much as always for supporting us. We could not continue to make the show without you.
Remember, you can find us on all the social medias. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok at Lez Hang Out Pod.
You can email us at lezhangoutpod@gmail.com.
You can check out our website at lezhangoutpod.com.
Whatever app you use for podcasts, make sure you subscribe so you'll be the first to know when new episodes drop.
We also have videos going up on our YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe at youtube.com/lezhangoutpod to catch those.
Lez Hang Out is an independently produced show hosted by us with audio production by me. Our production assistant is Kristen Murison, and Twitter shenanigans and various other odd jobs by Lee Holmes Foster.
If you want to help support the podcast, the first thing you can do is leave us a rating and a review on whatever app you use to listen to podcasts. A, we love reading the reviews, and B, it helps new people find the show.
If you want to support us on Patreon, we would love to see you there. You have all kinds of cool perks like ad-free episodes, bonus episodes. We have 21 up right now. You can also join our patron-only Discord chat, and it's super fun in there. You can join at bit.ly/lespatreon.
If you want to get some Lez Hang Out merch for Pride Month, there's no better time to show your pride than Pride Month. You can get all of our designs in two places now. You can find them as they've always been in our TeePublic. You can find that at bit.ly/lezshop. All of our designs, you can get them on tees, on tanks, on totes, on mugs, on all sorts of stuff. We also mentioned last week that we are starting our new shop where we are going to be moving a bunch of those designs and showing some new designs and new options of merch and things up on our website. So if you head to lezhangoutpod.com/shop, you can find some of our new designs, new offerings, and buy them directly from our website.
And remember, we have a queer production company making queer podcast musicals with guaranteed happy endings that you can find everywhere at $beanproud.
You can also check out our website, dollarbeanproductions.com.
You can listen to all the episodes of our first show, The Flame, on any podcasting app.
And you can check out the new run of Journey to the Heart starting today anywhere you listen to podcasts.
And if you want to help support us in making more musicals, you can join our Patreon at bit.ly/dollarbeanpatreon.
If you want to follow us individually, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at LSH Foster.
And you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Ellie Brigida. With that, I'm Ellie.
And I'm Lee. And
let's
hang out again soon.
Let's hang out.
Ladies and gentlemen.
What are you doing?
What do you mean?
Just keep it simple.
I'm making the promo.
Just keep it simple. Just say, hey, we're the Brav Bros. Two guys that talk about Bravo.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're the Brav Bros.
No.
Oh.
Dude, stop with the voice. Just keep it simple.
I've seen promos on TV, dude. This is how you get the fans engaged. This is how you get listeners. We're trying to get listeners here. If we just say, oh, we're two dudes that talk about Bravo, people are going to get tired of it already. We need some oomph.
All right, then fine. Let's try to do it with your voice.
Brav Bros.
Good job.